This is Jonathan Trommer and my new co-host, Zac. We are Fitstyle Podcast coming on here for our very first episode. So I thought we should take the time to just tell all of you about us, a little bit about how we met, our background story, and just all things good, fitness, health, and motivation. So to start off with myself, I started working out when I was about in 7th grade, just doing wrestling, not too many sports, a little bit of track. My dad pretty much taught me about exercise, all that good stuff. And after that, I joined the military after high school, did a lot of, running, calisthenics, all that good stuff. I got into weightlifting from a lot of, fellow Marines and stuff like that, as the culture is usually labeled as. After that, I really got into long distance running, where I met my now wife, Ashley. She was my running coach, just really got into how to fuel my body, how to properly stretch and properly way to run. I'd ran for years at the military, but never really focused on like tempo runs and, slow runs and workouts for running. I just always knew calisthenics and lifting. And this past year, I got into bodybuilding at OCB Cleveland, where I met Zac. I competed in classic physique, my first competition without any coach whatsoever. I won 3rd place classic physique. And now I'm going to go back this year for men's bodybuilding, hopefully to take the gold. So that's just a little bit about me. Now let's hear from Zac.
So yeah, I'll try to follow up that intro as best as I can. But like the story is, it's really similar in a lot of ways. So my stuff, I kind of started out just doing like some sports, junior high and high school, and a little bit of like baseball and football and track and some stuff like that. I was always like kind of smaller, a little on the skinnier side and stuff, and I always was kind of wanting to change that in some way, and sports definitely helped with that. But when I was in 8th grade, or when I was a freshman in high school, one of the two, one of my buddies who was more into fitness than I was at the time, he kind of got me to start lifting with him a little bit. And that's kind of what started this whole thing. So that was like a good 7+ years ago. Got me into just lifting. And that was just, like the weight room at our high school. And then beyond that, he also talked me into doing some powerlifting competitions in high school. So I have a little bit of experience with that. That was really, really fun. Love doing that. Hopefully can do that a little bit more even. Did that for a little while, got out of high school, came up to BGSU, where I was an undergrad for 3-4 years. And it was when I was up here, that's when I really started to take stuff a lot more seriously. And as we all kind of know, it's kind of hard to achieve a lot of like fitness goals when you're in college, because you're busy with classes and your meal plans in the dining halls, a lot of times they don't really allow you to have the best diet, or at least not like an optimal one. So I was kind of struggling with that a little bit, but after a little while, you kind of get the hang of things. And that was kind of when I started to do like the whole bodybuilding thing. And just like John just said, I did the first show last August. It was in Cleveland. I did men's physique though. So I was kind of in like the class, I want to say like the class down, where, the guys are typically a little bit smaller. There's a little more emphasis on like the aesthetics. You're wearing the board shorts and the whole thing, but I got 2nd place in novice. And just like he said, like, we're coming for the gold next time. We're going to train our butts off and see how far we can take this. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. I still around Bowling Green, still like helping out a lot of people. I did personal training for a couple of years. I used to work at the rec center on campus, like teaching classes and having a few clients here and there. So that also definitely helped with the experience side of things. But yeah, we're just looking to keep broadening our horizons all the time. And I guess this podcast is sort of an extension of that. So I'm happy to be here and doing this,
Oh, absolutely. This is definitely opening up doors. I know this is the first episode to everyone else, but I've already recorded other episodes and just, asking people about starting it and all that stuff. It's really grown even before the first episode publishing. So just kind of like affirms me that this is something like I meant to do and it's fun. and all
Right.
that stuff. So, but yeah, I know that, I kind of want to talk a little bit about our preparation for the show, because you and I were unique. Now, usually, I know people who don't do bodybuilding, usually you have a coach, because you can
Yeah.
get down to very low body fat percentages. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can
Mhm.
really screw yourself up.
Right.
So I kind of want to know your approach to how'd you know how to start? How'd you get your information? Maybe why you even started a bodybuilding competition, and then I can talk about, maybe some of those same things for me.
Okay. Yeah. So just kind of like to keep it, I guess, sort of brief. I always wanted to kind of compete on some level, like within the realm of fitness. And the reason I never was inspired to really get into powerlifting all that much is because, like I said previously, I was always kind of a little bit smaller, and obviously you have to be naturally like you have to have a large stature if you're going to compete in that stuff. So I was like, well, if I can't do that, what would be a little more feasible for me goal wise? And so that's kind of when I was like, oh, bodybuilding. And obviously, you're watching videos of like old school bodybuilders, like that. There's a documentary on YouTube, Pumping Iron. You watch that video and it just inspires the hell out of you. So it was just stuff like that, trying to get into it. So that was my reasoning. But yeah, like I didn't have a coach for the first show, which hopefully that helps other people. Like that makes people feel better if you're self-conscious about starting your first show. If you're like, oh well, should I get a coach or not? If you do enough of your own research, you can totally swing not having a coach. And that's exactly what I did. Was that the best idea? Maybe, maybe not. A big reason was because I was just stubborn, and I was like, I just want to teach myself how to do this. Like, I have to go through this on my own. I have to do this whole trial and error thing, and there was a ton of that. There were a ton of mistakes that I made. A lot of mistakes that undoubtedly I'll continue to make until I figure out how to fix those. But that's what I liked about doing it by myself is I was teaching myself. Um, because you can read books and you can listen to other people tell you how to do things, but experiencing it for yourself and having that type of um I don't know, that type of experience, like for me, that was what worked really, really well. um Obviously a lot of things I could have improved on with like diet and training and posing and all of the above. But that was sort of how my prep went, was just watching YouTube videos, um reading books, listening to fitness podcasts. um there were a couple people, like I said, on the campus gym that I worked at, that I would talk to, and there were a couple people that did powerlifting and bodybuilding and stuff. So I got to talk to them and get their 2 cents, and that was something that really helped, getting other people's opinions, um, and just doing all of that stuff. But I got to tell you, where I really started to learn things was actually at the show, where you have everybody else that's there is like minded like you, and it's a really, really good place to get new information and stuff. So for me, that was a big part, and hopefully something that I would love to continue doing in the future, is going to shows and like obviously competing, but also picking people's brains. The judges, the coaches, the other competitors, um, is a great way to kind of learn experience. But that was my approach, was just to kind of like wing it. I wasn't really expecting um, to win anything. I wasn't expecting to place highly at all. I was just doing it purely for like the experience points. And I always figured, I'm like, well, I'm young. I'm like, I have all the time in the world. If I want to really get competitive and get a coach down the road, I mean, that's obviously an option. But for now, I was like, it's all about the experience. So
It's like I'd almost recommend people to do that. Like, I don't want to tell people to like do
mhm,
something dangerous,
yeah,
and hurt themselves. But like, I think you touched a really good point. It's like as if you learn so much, if not the most, from the actual show. And for me, I
yeah,
had only prepped for 3 months. So, I had done marathon training earlier that year. I leaned down a ton. I took a couple months to bulk up, couple months to bulk down, which, if any of you know, that is not a significant amount of time. And I
mhm,
kind of just, when I was bulking, I ate more. When I was cutting, I significantly, progressively ate less. And then here I am at the show. But I really learned a lot because I saw competitors where I met my future coach and current coach now, and they would just say some of the things like, hey, how do you train? Hey, what do you see people eating like at the show and all this stuff? And you realize it's like, wow, I totally under practiced posing because you're up there and I went for novice and open. And it's just
Mhm.
like the few minutes you're up there feels like hours and you're
It
just
does.
shaking. And it's just
Yeah.
like, now I know for next time. And I did not peak the way I wanted to, nor did I
Yeah.
probably know how. Eating keto for the last week and then just carving up with candy, thinking I'm doing the right thing. And it just,
Yeah.
yeah, it was probably one of the most proud days of my life from like
Mhm.
individual perspective. I'm
Right.
so excited to go back. And actually, like, I didn't have expectation of placing high at all. And if any of you are curious about competing, we literally didn't have a coach. We completely did it all on our own, watching Greg Doucette videos, and then like place top three, both of us. So
Mhm.
like that's pretty impressive.
And it
And
was
there
a
was
big
like
show
it
too.
was a
Like
massive show. Like,
there were a lot of competitors. Yeah, it's
yeah, my
yeah.
coach Jake, he is very familiar with OCB. He's competed in multiple shows, and he's like, "This is by far the best well put and biggest show I've ever seen for OCB, and you guys did that well." So it's like, imagine if like, because I got Jake as a coach like 3 weeks after that show. I was like, okay, I need to like win next time. Like I know I can do well. And
Yeah.
people were giving me comments like, "Man, you look really good." It's like, "Hey, your mustache looks really good. Hey, your tan looks good." And it's like, I guess no one's told me I've been good at this until I came to the show. So that
Yeah.
boosted my confidence. It's just people actually are like, "Hey, your arms actually look really good." It's like, I didn't know that until because I
Yeah.
just did this all on my own. I don't know if you experienced like almost like a confidence from doing it.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And that's something else that, you can struggle with. I mean, it's just like anything else doing sports or, football, baseball or whatever. You do struggle with like an element of self-confidence because you're thinking, am I good enough? Did I prepare the right way? Did I prepare long enough? Um, but yeah, it's actually you go to the show and then you get to talk, like I said, talk to other people. But the amount of, and this is one of the reasons that I love bodybuilding, is the amount of hype that you get from the other people there, and everybody else is just I mean, we're also feeding each other's egos, which probably isn't the best thing to do, but we're also like really, really supportive with one another. And I think that's really, really cool because it really does help with that element of self-confidence. And like I said, the advice, um, completely underrated, the amount of advice that you can get and the quality of it that you can get. But um, yeah, I don't know. It was definitely one of my favorite things about the show.
And I noticed, I like I said, I didn't know what to expect. Even check-ins the day before, I didn't know kind of how like the culture of it. Like I understood bodybuilding, but because it was a natural bodybuilding competition, I didn't understand how people really interacted. Because for
Yeah.
me, coming from the military, being extremely like competitive and for lack of a better term, big dick contest,
Right.
everyone's very cutthroat and just to themselves. And you're my competition. I don't talk to you. In fact, I hate you. I don't even know who you are. But it's
Right.
not that at all. Like I remember going to check in that Friday. Kim, the promoter's like, "Hey, like, what's your Instagram tag? Take a picture here. Here's some goodie bag. Here's, you know, and even, some of the competitors who were like in bikini or something, like, "Hey, man, like, what do you do doing the competition? How long have you been, working out?" Or the show day, Cam, so my coach is Jake, who is Cam's coach, who I met. He won first place,
Mhm.
and they're like talking to me being my best friend, and he's literally my competition. So
Yeah.
I did that. And then after the show, half the competitors followed me on Instagram. And like now I talk to them like all the time.
Yeah.
And that just like does not happen. Like I was saying this the other day, is like usually for like competition for like high school, like your rival school, you hate every kid who goes to that school. And that's
Yeah.
just like how it is. But
You
for
don't even
here,
know them.
it's yeah, you never know. Like
It's inbred with
I
that
went to
hatred.
Medina. Yeah, I went to Medina. I just automatically hate Brunswick and all their sports teams. Like that's just how I'm supposed to act. So
Yeah.
it's like really weird to have people just so friendly, so nice, and like no matter how good or bad or big or small you are, everyone there worked hard. Whether you are novice men's physique or first place bodybuilding, everyone there worked
Right.
hard. And there's guys who
Yeah.
are 18 at that show. There's guys who are 50 at that show. and
Yeah.
everyone is just, it's really great.
Yeah. And that's another element of the show that I really, really liked. And I almost feel like it's kind of rare to find it anywhere else, is like the diversity of the competition, because like you said, you have different levels of experience, you from everybody from somebody that's just starting out to somebody who is a lifetime bodybuilder, different age ranges and everything else. And yeah, it's like the support, it's so crazy, it's so unparalleled when you think about like high school sports or even like other competitive things. Like I've helped people out with like powerlifting stuff here at the university, and it has that vibe of I don't know you, but I hate you. And I'm gonna do everything that I can to like crush your morale and your numbers, and I don't care if you go home crying. And that's like, and the same thing with like high school, which like high school, obviously, like you're kids, you're a little more like immature, I guess, for lack of a better
Yeah.
word. So there's also a lot more of that. But it was such a shock. um and like if you watch a lot of like stuff on YouTube, like bodybuilding type of stuff, you kind of do get that sense that there's a lot of supportive like energy going on there. But to actually experience it for yourself, like it was really, really surreal for sure.
Yeah, it was for me, I don't know. Trying to find stuff to like learn on my own about it. It wasn't like there was nothing out there. I think OCB does a decent job of like posting examples of poses, having
Right.
videos, telling you where you need to buy your trunks at. But I did find a decent amount of articles about different approaches to diet and peaking and stuff like that. Only thing
Hmm.
is that when you have a coach, it's like they're very specific towards you. And like my wife always says, there's more than one way to get to California. And there's so many different fads and diets and training regimens, and like
Hmm.
it's very overwhelming. So like I would literally see 5 articles and they all contradict on how to peak. Some say keep water consistent, some say mess with sodium, and some say, manipulate carbs and all this. You don't know what to
Right.
believe. So I felt it was kind of bittersweet. It was like kind of lost, but then like sometimes I did feel supported with like the
Yeah.
content I found. I think it's not too bad, but I think the community could do a better job of prepping people. I do think OCB
Yeah.
does a good job with their posing clinics though. Um,
Yeah.
but I would have to say it was kind of hard to do not having someone who had prior experience. And I hope that
Yeah.
for the future of the community that there's people who don't know coaches who know how to find the right people so that they're not going to not compete because they don't know how. Like if they want
Yeah.
to and they don't know how, they're still going to find a way to. So because there's
Yeah.
people who obviously are going to have the background we do, like my dad taught me how to work out and like the military taught me how to work out, but some people they might be
Yeah.
like, for me, I used to be super overweight and I lost weight through like learning from my dad, learning from the military. But there might be people who are adults, maybe 30, 40s. They're overweight, they lose weight, and like, hey, I'm going to go to masters. I really want to do this competition. And there's some people in their
Mhm.
40s in the best shape of their life. And I want them to not do the competition because they don't think there's enough material online to show them.
Yeah. And that's something that's really hard about like doing your own research, I think. Um, I mean, like just because like, like you and me, like when we did that, we were kind of like flying solo in a lot of ways. And I like I like describing how cool it was because it can kind of help ease the tension or ease the stress if you're doing this for the first time and you're thinking like, do I even have the ability um to do this on my own if I want to? And the short answer is yeah, you can totally do that. Like you can wing it on your own, you can do your own research, go through that whole trial and error thing. Um, but like the element of having a coach, like if you unless you're really confident in your ability to like weed through all the research, because like you just mentioned, there is a ton of stuff out there. And at times it's really hard to know like what to believe, like what's real, what's not, who's just saying stuff for clout, who actually has science behind what they're presenting. But if you have a coach, I mean, you do feel a lot safer and they are a lot more tailored towards you. Um, so I mean, honestly, like looking back, if I wasn't so stubborn, I would say get a coach if you're doing it for the first time, just because you can eliminate so many headaches If that's something that, you feel like that could work for you. If you have a bunch of people in your corner, like you said, like, your dad showed you how to work out. I had friends that helped me get into working out. If those people in our lives just so happen to be bodybuilders, or if they had experience with that element of competitiveness, like those, they could have been our coaches, and we would never need to hire somebody because our experience just so happened to be in that world,
Hmm.
or their experience, I should say. So, man, it just depends on like who you have on your like your support team, you know?
Well, I think it's just the way you learn. I mean, you and I feel like we're both very hands-on. Hey, well, I want to learn it. I want to do it myself so I can give myself the full credit. Like I want to say
Right.
like I did this on my own. So,
Yeah.
and I feel like I pick up things pretty well. So, my dad, he, you know, played college football, lifted, throughout high school, college, and we would go to the rec center. And, you know, me also being the independent person I am, in a go-getter, watching YouTube videos, how to properly, do these exercises, stuff like that, and just
Hmm.
being, it kind of is like a testament of my passion is like, I guess you are this way too. It's like I'm such a nerd for bodybuilding. Like I literally look up
Yeah.
the stuff for fun. Like I'll
Right.
literally be in the gym watching someone else's like vlog and they're working out. Like I'm watching someone work out while I'm in the gym. Like that's how
Yeah.
nerdy I am about this. And just like
Yeah.
my wife tells me, it's like because she's gonna compete at this upcoming show in bikini, but last year she was just like, will you shut up? It's like I don't care about macros and this and that. And I'm just like, like, well, what if I move this and that? Because I was
Yeah.
adjusting my macros all the time, thinking like, well, what if I was like higher carb, but then like lower the fat a little bit, like being all like scientific about it. And
Yeah.
just it's really funny the average person watching what it takes. Cause like weighing my food, using my fitness pal, like
Yeah.
saying, oh, today's push day. Like, what do you mean today's push day? What does that even
Yeah. They think it's
just
nuts.
they're
Like
just
absolutely foreign. It's such a
yeah.
foreign concept.
And
It's
I
wild.
I sensed that during when I was posting about my marathon training. And then like anything over like 3 miles, people be like, that's crazy. Why would you do that? I'm like, well, you're gonna get a kick out of ultra marathon runners then, because they'll run like up 50 to 100 miles. I'm only
Oh
running
yeah.
26. So they'll be like, hey, what you do today? Oh, I ran 10 miles. 10 miles? What? It's like that's actually
Yeah.
like nothing. But anywho, um
But that's something else that's like really good about this stuff is getting exposure to it. Like even if you're not somebody, like even if you don't love running marathons, like talk to people that do, because it's going to normalize that sort of fitness for you the more you talk to them. Like I don't get into a lot of like the like marathon running, but when I used to work at the rec here on campus, um I would work with people who were into that type of thing. I mean, they're exercise science students, most of them. And I remember there was a lady that I was talking to, and she was trying to get in anywhere between 100 and 150 miles a week, and that averaged out to, I don't know, 10 or 20 a day or something crazy. But she talked about it so casually. It's like when you wake up and you make your coffee in the morning. Like for her, it was like, yeah, I'm gonna go run a quick 20. And it just seems insane. It's like off the wall insane the first time you hear about it, and then over time, like I said, it gets more normalized. But
or something I do want to mention, sorry, I was muted for a second,
that's good.
is just to define for any of our viewers who don't understand what they mean by natural bodybuilding. What I mean by that is we are not taking specific supplementation and drugs that essentially give you an edge, I guess, to be more specific, anabolics or steroids, performance enhancing drugs. And no, I don't mean taking pre workout or creatine. I mean, taking things like gear or tren or, specific diuretics when cutting and stuff like that. Essentially, you are performing with your natural body, you're using food, basic vitamins, and stuff like that to grow and to recover. When you're cutting, you're just, doing cardio and lowering your food intake. You're not doing all this crazy stuff. So,
Mhm.
I just hope that people realize, like, when you see Mr. Olympia, it's like there are specific compounds and certain things they are taking so that they are that big. It's not that they don't work hard or anything, or they don't,
Yeah.
they still eat a lot, still sleep and rest and work out hard like the rest of us, but there's specific things that and risks they are taking that natural bodybuilding does not. And so I think that just like kind of like disclaimer, there. This is completely different than like in a Mr. Olympia, IFBB, NPC, whatever. So
yeah. And that's something else. Like, don't let, if you're gonna look at getting into bodybuilding, don't compare yourself, especially not at the beginning. Don't compare yourself to the people that you see at the Mr. Olympia. Just for the fact that it can kind of make it seem kind of like unrealistic, or unattainable. Like, you can look at somebody that's like 250 pounds or even heavier than that, I think. And, you can think to yourself like, well, how am I ever going to get to that stage? But, it's not like the expectations aren't that you automatically go to that level. It's like you're natural, and then you put in the work and you have the right food, and you supplement with, things like pre-workout and creatine or whatever. But the point is that, especially when you're just starting out, is that you just do your best, and you put in the work and you just try to learn, and get the experience. I mean, that's what it's all about. At least for me, starting out, that's what it's been about.
Yeah, I honestly didn't know there was a difference for the longest time. Like, I didn't realize there's a subculture of a subculture, as Jake and I put it. I was like, man, how do those guys get so big? Do they just start lifting at such a young age and they just like progress? And I'm like, like Chris Bumstead's the same age as me. I mean, I think he's 26, 27. I'm 27. So like, I'm like, I'm nowhere near his size. Obviously, there's genetics and work ethic, and like I took some years to focus on running and not lifting, which obviously is going to be a big, huge difference. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different variables and you can't beat yourself up. I mean, there's some guys who've been probably doing bodybuilding twice as long as me who still aren't as big as I am. I just am gifted with what I have, and I've only done bodybuilding for 1 year, and I did a pretty darn good job my first year. So I just realized, hey, this is something I should do. But of course, there's guys who are like even better than me who don't even compete. So it's a wild ride, but it's fun.
Yeah. You just, I mean, if you're interested, like, you just have to start and just, see where it takes you, like, see where your experience, like what you can gain from it, what you can learn from it. You'll find out a lot about like what your genetics are and what your limitations of your body and stuff. You'll learn a ton about all of those things.
Oh yeah, you'll really see your limits. You'll really understand what hard work ethic is. You really understand what like giving your 100% is. I would recommend that even if you're not really into fitness, just try it out. Just even if you do like a marathon, just do something that is hard, that's going to take months and months of dedication to, that it's not just this quick thing, and really takes a lot. You really grow as a person. I think the reason why I liked the show the most isn't because of how great I looked, but how much I learned and grew as a person. And I, kind of stepped on that stage to do my T-walk, my posing routine. And that was an example of like who I became that year, and not just like, well, look at my muscles and look how lean I am. Yeah. And that's what I'm really hoping for this next year. Like, I want my outside to look good, but I really want to show the way I carry myself, and maybe the placing, whatever it is, that I'm proud of who I became as a person through fighting through hunger and dieting and harsh workouts and all that.
Yeah. You learn a lot about yourself along the way. That's for sure. And like, just something else I want to say, like, as a sidebar, like, I know we're kind of like tangenting on this whole like bodybuilding thing, but like, we'll cover like all sorts of other topics. Like, it's not just going to be like bodybuilding stuff. Like, it's anything that has to do with like health or fitness. These are just passions of ours. So they'll definitely come up more than once, but I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah. Bodybuilding is just how Zach and I met. Obviously, we're going to talk about some other things next week. Already have scheduled work-life gym balance with my buddy Colin. That's already recorded, so we'll have that. We'll be talking about supplementation, nutrition, mental health, exercise, training splits, all that good stuff. So very exciting stuff to go. I know we only got a couple minutes. What I want to talk about last is what our plans are moving forward doing OCB 2022 returning, and then just where people can connect and meet with us moving forward.
Okay. So yeah, just to kind of clarify that, like for the future, hopefully going to do this next show in August, the OCB. It's Battle of the Great Lakes, if anybody's heard of it. So it's going to be in August at the end of the month. Going to do that. Same thing for men's physique. Going to be a novice again. This time, like I said, obviously we're going to try to do better. We're going to put in more work and see where it takes us. That's going to be my plans for the future. And then if anybody wants to reach out to me, I can be found on Instagram. So it's going to be First Leap Fitness _, in between each word. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Follow my story. I post stuff pretty consistently. And yeah, that's like my main like source for a lot of content and all that.
Perfect. Awesome. As far as for me, like I said, last year did Classic Physique. I got 3rd place in Novice and Open. So I'm switching classes over to men's bodybuilding. Planning to take the gold there, 1st place, full expectation there, doing whatever it takes. I'm about 8 months out. It's still only January, but working hard with Jake. As far as where you can find me at Jon Trom Fit on Instagram. Obviously, there's also a page for this podcast, which is Fitstyle Podcast on there, which I'll link everything for you guys in the description. Follow us both. I will be starting a YouTube channel as well for my prep. So that'll be coming soon, which we'll, of course, talk about during the podcast. And you can expect episodes every Thursday from us. So pretty much every week we plan on going, like Zach said, everything health related, bodybuilding, nutrition, gym, life, hormones, stuff like that.
Have a lot of like other guests and stuff on too, like other people to weigh in, so it's not just us babbling.
Oh yeah, as much as you love to hear us, guys. So yeah, definitely lots to come. If you ever want to either collaborate, be on the podcast yourself, or just have questions to ask us, feel free to send either of us a message.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So I think that wraps up our very first episode. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Take care, buddy.
All right, take care.